On this episode of All Chiefed Up, ex-NFL star wide receiver thinks that the Chiefs could potentially land both Odell Beckham Jr. and DeAndre Hopkins. Plus, we're taking a look at potential free agent wide receivers that's left and possible draft options. Stick around.
What's happening, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to All Chiefed Up. Former wide receiver from the Dallas Cowboys, Dez Bryant, has tweeted out, "I wouldn't be surprised if Odell or D-Hop go to the Chiefs. I wouldn't be surprised if both guys go to the Chiefs." Mike, is that even a thing?
My mind is blown. I don't want to think that Dez Bryant has any inside info into what Brett Veach is thinking. Nobody knows what Brett Veach is thinking. This is insane. But Steve, could you imagine what it would look like if we had both of those guys out there with the guys we already have?
It would just be nasty. It'd probably be unfair for the rest of the NFL. But is this even possible, Mike? I know we'd have to trade at least a second or third rounder to Arizona just to acquire D-Hop, and then he's due $19 million and $12 million over the next 2 years. So that would have to get reworked out, on top of signing Odell Beckham Jr., who we know is wanting around that $10 million mark. So I just don't know if that's possible, even if they wanted to do it.
Yeah, we've already talked about, we think we're out of the D-Hop sweepstakes. Our pick number 31 in the first round is basically a second round pick. So they're probably asking for that. We're not giving that up. The draft is in Kansas City. Clark Hunt's head would explode if Brett Veach made that trade. So that's not happening. That probably takes us out of the D-Hop trade. Odell Beckham Jr., he tweeted yesterday that, hey, I know I don't deserve the highest amount of money, but I'm not playing for $4 million. We laughed because we were like, that has to be Brett Veach offering him $4 million and a bunch of incentives. So I don't even know if we can make that one work, let alone both of these. I think that Dez Bryant is smoking a little bit.
Probably. What's the most likely situation here? If you had to pick one of the two, which one do you think KC might go after?
I think at this point, it's going to be Odell Beckham Jr. It's going to be that contract. If you can get him in here for $7-8 million on a prove-it deal, maybe some incentives that could kick it up to $10 million, they may be able to pull that off. I actually think D-Hop is going to take way too much to get him out of Arizona, and I don't think we're in that one still.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I think Odell Beckham is the last target. If it's not him, it's probably bust till the draft, because let's talk about what's left in free agency for wide receivers, Mike. It looks like just now, as we're recording this, Adam Schefter reports former Vikings wide receiver Adam Thielen announced that he is signing with the Carolina Panthers, and it's going to be a 3-year deal, which means he's going to be 35 by the time that contract is up. What do you think about that?
Dude, he'll almost be 36 by the time that thing's up. He's probably not going to play there the full time. He's basically just a possession wide receiver at this point in his career. I don't think he has much explosiveness left. We talked about the Vikings releasing Adam Thielen, and we said that may be a potential thing that we do to replace Juju. But to be honest, it's probably going to be way too much money. And obviously the Panthers are willing to throw that out there after they've lost DJ Moore. We've also talked about DJ Chark here, but it looks like the Panthers are seriously thinking about taking him off the market as well. I could see that happening as well. And we don't have DJ Chark. So this leads us to a few other options here, Steve. I'll let you start with the first one. A lot of people are saying we should sign back Mecole Hardman. What do you think about that?
I wouldn't be opposed to re-signing Mecole Hardman on a small 1-year prove-it deal. He was hurt last year when he really needed to show us what he could do. So it would give him a fair chance to do just that and see if we want to sign him long-term after that. He actually went to Twitter yesterday with some footage of him at what looks like practice or camp or something like that with just ... And I actually made the suggestion, hey, it looks like he's not getting much interest here in free agency, which he responded to and actually said, no, that's not it at all. So he's implying that there are teams that are looking at him and maybe have even offered him something. I don't know if he's waiting around for Brett Veach to make him an offer to stick around in Kansas City, or if it's just really not as hot as he's leading it on to be.
Yeah, well, we've seen that the free agent market this time around, there's not true number ones out there. You had Juju, you had Jacoby Meyer, all those guys, they're all signing for somewhere around that $11 million a year mark. We thought that was a little low for Juju, but to be honest, that's where the market's sitting. It's nowhere near as hot as it was last year. And I don't think Mecole Hardman draws that $11 million a year. He's not as valuable as a Juju Smith-Schuster or Jacoby Meyer, to be honest. He's more of a gadget type guy that everybody's looking at. So I do believe he has to prove a little more. So again, I think his cap is somewhere around that $6-7 million, and that's a high estimate, I think. If the Chiefs was to offer something probably around $5 million, which is what Brett Veach is doing, this is why he's testing the free agent market. But he could come right back to that, and I wouldn't be opposed to it. I think having Mecole Hardman back on the roster again next year would not hurt.
Yeah, I think McCole Hardman's probably the obvious choice at this point if you can get him for a cheap price. He already knows the playbook. He already has good chemistry with the guys in the locker room, and he does what we need him to do with his jet sweeps and stuff out of the backfield. So, I mean, McCole Hardman makes sense here.
Right. I have another guy. I've been looking at free agency. I got another guy may make Chiefs fans' heads explode. Going back to 2015, Arrowhead Pride said he was their draft crush and was actually looking to get him in the first or second round. When he left Vegas a couple years back, he eventually signed with the Patriots, but KSHB 41 in Kansas City's Nick Jacobs actually said we should sign him and revive his career. I'm looking at Nelson Aguilar. I don't prefer this guy, but I could definitely see him coming to the Chiefs. I could see him playing a role where he maybe catches 40 balls a year, blends right in, maybe one, maybe two, maybe three touchdowns, and he goes about his business, and we're back in the Super Bowl again. I don't think it's a splash signing, but it's somebody that does need to prove it, and this is what, I mean, it's got Brett Veach written all over it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I joke around with the gagging and stuff because he was a notorious bust. But Nelson Aguilar actually does offer some of the stuff that Brett Veach likes. If you could get that guy to actually catch the ball, I think he would be okay, but he just has stone hands.
Dude, I was watching some highlights of him again today. He catches everything off his body. Oh my God, it's horrible to watch. But I could still see us throwing some money out there just to have a veteran wide receiver in the room.
Yeah, so one other option is that we sit and take a wide receiver in the first round, trade up for a wide receiver, or take one later in the draft. So, Mike, what kind of draft options are we looking at for wide receiver right now?
Right. So the Chiefs are picking number 31 in the draft. A lot of people are talking defensive players. A lot of people are talking maybe a tackle. But if we look to address the wide receiver there at the end, number 31, I don't think you're going to see names like Jordan Addison from USC. I don't think you're going to get your hands on Jackson Smith and Jigba from Ohio State. I think they're going to be gone. You could possibly get a Zay Flowers. We've talked about him. He's kind of a little bit of better McCole Hardman option. Jalen Hyatt, we don't know much about Jalen Hyatt. He ran that really weird offense with Josh Heupel in Tennessee where he got a lot of free releases. He didn't have to make a lot of contested catches. He may be gone before then. He could fall into the second round. You don't know what you're going to get with him, but there's one guy, Steve, we're looking at here at the end of the first round that could be a cool option, and that is North Carolina wide receiver Josh Downs.
Absolutely. This looks like a guy that Brett Veach and Andy Reid could have a field day with. He's a junior coming out of North Carolina. He's 5'10", 175 pounds. Last season, he came away with 94 receptions, 1,029 yards, and 11 touchdowns. This guy is very, very fast and quick. He's a good athlete. He's pretty small. The combine actually has him at 5'9", 171. But at the combine, he had a production score of 88, which was third overall in the wide receiver group. His athleticism score was 77, which was ranked 19th. But his total overall score was 86, which had him ranked second in the wide receiver group. He had a 40-yard dash of a 4.48 and a 1.49 10-yard split. And these guys are comping him to Kadarius Toney, so that's very interesting to me.
Right. He's a guy that can get open from all aspects of the game. He uses just like Kadarius Toney. He wiggles a lot. He uses all these in and out routes. He's dangerous in the red zone. He is a great red zone target. He knows how to get himself open. He knows how to use screens and picks to his advantage. He's somebody that we could look at right there. I do think 31 may be a little rich. He is climbing up the draft boards, but again, I don't know if Brett Veach wants to go at wide receiver at number 31. I think we're probably going to look defense or offensive tackle there.
Well, the knock that he gets is that he doesn't finish routes and he's not that great of a route runner. That's something that can be worked on. And we have great coaches in Kansas City that can make sure that he improves on that. So if that's the big knock on him, maybe we could take him there at the end of the first round and make something happen with him.
Right. So I'm looking at the second round, possibly third round for a wide receiver, Steve. I'm looking at Tank Dell out of Houston, Michael Wilson out of Stanford. Although he had a lot of injury problems, we're going to be looking at his medicals, but he's a big guy and he's got a lot of NFL talent. He could be a good pickup right there in round 2. You've also got Parker Washington out of Penn State. He's not as quick, not as crazy, but he is very solid with his hands. He can get open. But I want to focus on Tank Dell. I think that's a guy we could look at. He's 5'8", 165. PFF actually graded him on offense an 83.5 and an 85% pass grade. He ran a 4.49 40, and as you said at the combine, his production score was an 87, number 4 out of all wide receivers. His athleticism score was a 72. That's a little low, number 32 out of all wide receivers. But his total score was an 83, and that put him as the number 6 wide receiver at all the draft combine. And in his senior year, he had 109 receptions for 1,400 yards and 17 touchdowns. And we're like, hey, that could be a fluke. No, go back to 2021, 90 receptions, 1,329 yards, and 12 more touchdowns. He was used a lot in that Houston offense, and I think he could be a weapon for the Chiefs.
Yeah, he could definitely be a great value pick. PFF actually has him sliding into the third round on some of their mock drafts. If we could get a guy that ranked 6th of all wide receivers at the combine in the third round, you can't beat that, especially with the production that he put up at Houston.
Yeah, I really like Tank Dell. He has the ability to get open. He has the ability to run after the catch. His hands are a little suspect. He's got a lot of drops, but again, drops don't seem to matter in Kansas City, even though I do believe we've decided to move forward with that aspect because we took Sky Moore last year and he was like, great hands. So maybe they're trying to get out of that. They're looking more for better hands rather than more shiftiness and getting open and production. So we'll have to see where Brett Veach's head is. He's impossible to call out, Steve, but there is a guy that we like in the later rounds. A lot of Chiefs Kingdom has talked about him. We've looked into him. A kid from BYU, 6'2", 201, Puka Nacua, Steve. His production score was actually a 75, and PFF graded him a 90 on offense and a 90 with pass offense. So this kid could flat out play, although last year he only had 625 yards and 5 touchdowns. I just don't think BYU used them. They're not an explosive offense.
No, and if you look at the year before that, he almost put up similar numbers with BYU. It was 43 receptions for 805 yards and 6 touchdowns. So he just went back a tick in 2022, but pretty much the exact same receiver. But his prospect grade at the combine was a 5.8. They're calling him an average backup or a special teamer. But then again, we do like to take guys in the late rounds that can contribute to special teams. So I wouldn't count this guy out completely.
Yeah, we just lost Marcus Kemp to the Commanders. We could use a guy like this, similar size, somebody that could come in on special teams and possibly contribute. But also, Puka Nacua runs a lot of the same stuff Andy Reid likes to run. They use him a lot in the screen game. They use him a lot on jet sweeps and the run game a little bit. I think the guy's a valuable pick that you could probably get in the 5th or 6th round.
A lot of us think that we have to look at a tackle in the first round of the NFL draft, and Anton Harrison from Oklahoma, that's somebody that we like. Also, RGR says that he could be the next Chiefs tackle. So check that video out right now. Make sure to get in our comments, and thanks for subscribing and hitting that bell.
There goes a sight from my soul.